everyone. Welcome to the Pharmacy Friday podcast. My name is Jason Benedict, and I'm one of the co-founders of RX Ambassadors, and I'm joined by my amazing co-host, Dr. Amit Kakar from Avalon Pharmacy. Hey, Amit, how are we doing today?
Good morning. Good morning. Happy Friday. How are you, Jason?
I love it. I love it. It's another Friday. I love doing this every week and excited to jump in. So each week we invite a few independent pharmacy owners to join us as guest speakers on the podcast. We'll select one guest speaker at a time to interview. However, we do encourage our guest speakers to engage and ask questions via our chat box. So welcome to the show.
Hi, how are you doing?
We're good. How are you doing today?
Doing good, thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
All right, good deal. Well, Anderson, why don't you start off by telling us a little bit about yourself and your independent pharmacy?
My name is Anderson Jolly, and we own Ready Meds Pharmacy, which is located in Seattle, Washington. We're long-term care. We have a few long-term care pharmacies and also a retail pharmacy as well. And we specialize in bubble packing for folks. So we primarily do group homes as well as smaller facilities. So, it's still pharmacy. It's nothing different than pharmacy. So it still is pharmacy. So, but that's primarily what we do.
Okay, very good. So Anderson, I believe you have 5 locations. Is that correct?
We do. We have 5 locations, long-term care, and 1 retail location.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about your journey to ownership, because a lot of our listeners may just have one store and they may be looking to scale to another. So I'd love to have you share a little bit about your journey to, ownership of, multiple stores and multiple locations.
Well, the journey has been a very interesting one. I'll say to anybody, it's not easy. But it's one where you have to work with everybody. You have to work with your suppliers. You have to work with the government. You have to work with just about everybody that you are involved with. And even your tax professional, your bankers. And so pharmacy is one where we really haven't learned to work with a lot of people. And what we need to do is train pharmacists differently, if you ask me. So I think it's something that we don't teach people in pharmacy school. I think to some extent, almost pharmacists have to be attached to almost business school at least. If you want to be a good independent pharmacist, you also have to be a good business person. So does that make a little bit of sense?
Oh, it makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely.
I'd love for Amit to maybe chime in on that as well.
Yeah, a pleasure to meet you. Yeah, I'm a very similar situation. We have a retail pharmacy we've had for almost 25 years. And I feel like still after 25 years, I'm still learning the business aspect of it, right? And never stop, right? And I love what you're saying, though, is that we could teach a little bit in the schools. When you enter, if you want to promote independent pharmacy, it's nice to have a little bit of a business background, which would be tremendous, right?
That would really, really help. And I think that's where we fail. We go in and we get all this clinical knowledge and all this knowledge that we're supposed to be great people, great pharmacists. We're supposed to learn all these things. We're supposed to know all about patient history, clinical care. And really and truly, they teach us nothing about business. So what happens to 99% of the pharmacists is that they end up working for somebody because that's their comfort zone. And that's where they feel comfortable. And that's what they understand. To be an independent pharmacist is almost taking a risk with your own personal life and literally going into a venture where you go into something that you really know nothing about. Because really and truly, pharmacy is it's really business. It really is. You have accounting, you have staff, you have you have different requirements that you have to meet. You have all these different things that you have to comply with, regulations. Nobody teaches that in school. So I think one of the most interesting things is doing something like that. So the journey's been a little bit interesting. Now, I've been fortunate with the fact that, I did do some business school in my life. So So that's made things easier for me. I know how to scale businesses. I know how to understand. I understand them carefully, and really and truly, that helps me a little bit. But I know that the other pharmacists struggle with it tremendously.
But Anderson, I'd love to ask you this question from my experience. What are your thoughts about learning as you talk about doing the MBA for pharmacists. What are your thoughts about learning as you get thrown into this in your situation? How did
Well,
that
well, well, are you talking about baptism by fire?
basically, your thoughts on learning as there's two theories, right? One is get educated, and the more educated you get in business, you keep thinking, am I ready? Am I ready? Or you dive into it and learn as you go along, which I feel like the two of us have done. I'm curious on your thoughts as the model of sort of jumping in and diving in, learning as you clearly have done really well.
Well, learning and diving in is good, but the problem is that the human reaction to it is not good. A lot of times here it is that you have something that you know you get thrown into, and you learn about as you go. But while you're learning, you're also working, you're taking care of your kids, your wife, you're taking care of your patients as well. You're doing all these extra things. So what usually happens is there's a great degree of frustration that comes with it, if that makes some sense.
Yeah.
So for many people, it's really frustrating. It's really frustrating in terms of what you do, in terms of what you do. So what you need to understand is that that is not a natural human response. Does that make sense? So what are we supposed to do as human beings? Not everybody has that wild side about them, and really and truly, that comes along after some time. Does that make sense? After some time, you get numb to the whole thing.
Right.
Yep. Anderson, I'd love to talk a little bit about, maybe some of the challenges. Let's talk about maybe one challenge that you faced and how you addressed it and how you overcame it. Obviously, pharmacists did.
Just one challenge.
I want you to pick your biggest challenge that you had this week that stands out in your mind that was like, something that challenged you, and how did you overcome it?
I think every day you have a challenge. Main challenge right now, I think, in pharmacy is really staff. Is really staff in pharmacy. So many people feel like pharmacy is like every other business, like Nordstrom's, where you can just buy clothes. So many people feel like, hey, pharmacy is like, you can work from home, or you can take 6 months off and just walk back in. And the younger mentality is there because they want to travel. You want to do this, you want to do that. Everybody wants a job like Amazon, sort of.
Yeah.
And pharmacy is not that type of job. It really is something where you have to be on it. You got to be there every day. You almost have to be there 7 days a week sometimes. You have to put in more than 6 or 8 hours a day. Usually it's 12. So there is that mindset and that mentality that, guess what? Uh, you know, yeah, it is that I'm looking for a job with great work-life balance. Pharmacy has the worst work-life balance right after doctors and nurses and all those other things. So there it is that most people are looking for that, but so staffing, I think, is probably one of the toughest things. And explaining to people, no, you can't get 6 weeks off, because if I give you 6 weeks off, I can't hire somebody, train them, replace you, or cover you for 6 weeks,
Yep. Yeah, staffing has been a big one. Amit, like obviously we've heard staffing quite a few times in the last couple of episodes. What would you say to Anderson's response regarding staffing and the challenges he mentioned?
Absolutely, Anderson. We have a retail pharmacy, and I'll say in the past 25 years, especially during COVID, staffing's everything. I think you alluded to this. It really comes down to standards, right? Trying to have our staff maintain a certain standards, and I think that's, for me personally, I'm hearing this over and over again. It's a struggle of trying to have those same standards that you have because they're patient care, right? It's not It's any other, every business has their set of standards, but I feel like in pharmacy, these are patients we're dealing with, right? And it matters.
Yeah, yeah. Well, not that it matters. I mean, they do matter, but here's the bigger thing behind it, that you have the state board, which has hundreds of regulations that you have to follow. You have several regulatory agencies that are right over you, and literally those agencies expect you to uphold that standard. And that's the frustrating thing, is that they expect you to have the people, they expect you to have the manpower, they expect you to have all these things in place every day without fail. So that is a little frustrating, and then you walk in on a Monday morning and the state board's at your front door and they want to do an inspection today, and it's like, well, why does the state board think Monday morning is the best day to do an inspection? Is that the day that is best for you guys, or is that the day that you think is best for us? But people just have to understand that the world is in a lot of flux right now, but these regulatory agencies have no regard for that.
Right.
They don't care. The DEA doesn't care whether you're two people down today. They want to make sure that these invoices are signed. They want to make sure that the drugs are put away properly. They want to make sure, they don't care what the excuse is that you may have for running your pharmacy. They want to make sure that it is done correctly. And there's no excuse that you can possibly give them and say, hey guys, sorry, today is just a bad day. And they're like, can't have bad days. That's the next thing about pharmacy. You can't have bad days.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
right.
Sometimes it's what's realistic and what you can do don't always align, right, Anderson? I mean, that's
Well,
right.
well, yes. Well, it aligns sometimes, and most times in a perfect world it is. And if the world hasn't been perfect for a little bit right now.
Sure.
So Anderson, of the other pharmacists listening in, and you mentioned staffing has been a challenge. What's been your go-to resource for finding and hiring, whether it be farm techs or pharmacists?
Well, I think there is no go-to resource. I think you have to try everything, and that's just the key to success these days. In pharmacy, it's like you almost have to start thinking out of the box. Whether you have to go down to Jimmy John's and hire the guy behind the Jimmy John's counter that you see is doing good, and I don't mean to pick on Jimmy John's. It could be Subway as well. I don't really care, but I mean you have to try everything. I mean, before we were looking at schools to put out decent candidates. You're looking at good programs that could send decent candidates your way, but now you almost have to make decent candidates. So I think what pharmacy has really resorted to is, the pharmacies that will survive are the owners that are willing to, if you want to put it, be flexible or be ingenious about what they do, or really, try new things. Just try different things. You got to try everything these days. And one of the things that I know is a lot of people said, well, everybody wants to make more money. Throwing more money at it doesn't really work. And a lot of people think, hey, just pay your staff more and you'll get lots of staff. Has nothing to do with money anymore. It used to have to do with money, but not anymore.
Yeah.
So
I love it. I always like to ask the question, what's one thing that you've done in the last year that created more growth in your pharmacy, whether it created more RX counts, more prescriptions, or more revenue in your business?
I think one of the things you have to do is you have to be, I think in order to grow any pharmacy right now, you have to be involved in the community that you're in. And so many people ignore that. So many people ignore the fact that you have to be involved in the community that you're in. You have to know what the events are. You have to participate in them. You have to sponsor them. I mean, really and truly, it's a whole different ballgame. Before, you could just sit at your pharmacy and say, hey, people are going to bring prescriptions. No, you have to go out and you have to advertise. You have to be interested in it. You have to speak at their forums. You really have to participate in the community, any community that you're in, not just the one that you have your little pharmacy. I mean, everywhere around. And you really have to be the sort of person, the go-to person for everybody. You have to have the personality for it as well. I think that's a lot of pharmacies don't realize that as well. They're like, hey, guess what? I'm behind my counter. I'm filling your drugs. Be happy about that. And you can't just be that anymore. You have to be the guy that might give them a joke, put a smile on their face. You have to be the guy that's gonna ask about their kids. You have to be the guy or the gal, whichever one you prefer, that goes out there and shakes their hand or gets invited to their kids, party, or gets invited to their 50th birthday party. So you have to be that person that's really involved in the community, and I think that's what brings more growth. When people see that you're interested in them, then they become interested in you.
100%. Yeah, it's all about the relationships. It's about the people. It's about the engagement that you're creating and the impact that you're making, right? It's not just the transactional relationship of dispensing.
Not anymore.
Yeah.
Not anymore.
Yeah. Well, Anderson, thank you so much for joining us. You're welcome to stay on and listen as we bring on our next guest. And feel free to chime in on the chat box with any questions.
Okay.